Hi, everyone. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Like Quinn Lisa. Today is a wonderful Wednesday. It's the day before the 4th of July, and we want to talk about your health, which gives you more freedom. Dr. McDaniel is here to talk to us about the benefits of micronutrition in cases of ADD and ADHD and the effects that they have seen over the past few years with people that are taking New Eden. So we'll be right back with Dr. McDaniel right after this. Give us a like and share, and then I'm going to have a surprise for you guys at the end of the video. Welcome back, Dr. McDaniel. How are you?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. We're leading up to a celebration. Your birthday is coming up soon. That was exciting news that you shared with us. And we're having the 4th tomorrow. So having just a whole wellness and freedom celebration this month. Excited.
Well, I would like to start out by saying that if you go Google different sayings that go in there, and one of them I've run across is that it says, teach me a fact or the truth, and I'll forget it. Teach me a principle, and I will struggle to know when to apply it and how to apply it. But tell me a story, and I've got it forever. And it says there's about 6 or 8 people that claim to be the first person to say that, and they say it's best to say probably anonymous is the source of that, but it is so true. And I would like to start with a story, because back in the 1980s, just as a little review, a little company about 5 miles from where I'm sitting called Avocare had 12 aloe vera leaf gel products. And one of them was a beverage called Carolo. Mm-hmm. And the owner of the company got in 1984-85 about 7 different little short things in the mail, or there were faxes in, there weren't any emails, that an individual that had acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, which we call AIDS, contacted him and said, I drank your Carolo and I was on my deathbed for this disease of unknown cause and no treatment. And now I'm back at work or in my educational process, and I thought you'd want to know. Well, he came to me at Dallas Fort Worth Medical Center as head of the laboratory and wanted me to be a consultant. And I sat there and listened to him tell that what I just told you with respect, because I had known him a number of years. But inside, I was saying hogwash, a placebo effect, or either a hoax. And he wanted me to be a consultant because he had raised $20 million with the idea of analyzing the aloe leaf gel and finding what it was in this beverage that was helping these AIDS patients. Well, one of the things we found out is that with this $20 million, people will stand in line to want to do research for you. And he started with 10 academic institutions working on this to try to find out what in the world's going on. Well, to make a long story short, we found out with these different institutions that were medical schools that this was a different approach to antiviral activity. What it did was boost the body's cellular and humoral host defense mechanisms. In other words, the white cells, which is an army that defends the body, work better. In the serum, you had antibodies and various complements and substances that are anti-infectious. And this is totally different from your pharmaceutical drugs that usually interfere with the biochemistry of the infectious agent. and the infectious agent can develop resistance to the drug. Well, this is the body's ability to fight off infection, and it lifted the host defenses to levels never seen before. And lo and behold, we found out that bacterial agents, fungal agents, every virus that we tested, and that included viruses not only in humans, but in chickens, in cats, in horses, and other animals, that viruses I'd never heard of, that they were wiped out. You could get a load of this active ingredient from the aloe plant and you couldn't infect them. And if you infected the animal and gave this, they would clear the infection because the body's defenses were working better. Well, one of the lab techs, his name is Charlie, came to me and said, I've got a 12-year-old daughter that just keeps having either one ear infected or the other, both ears, and chronic tonsillitis and sinusitis and early bronchitis, just constantly poor uh, resistance to infections. Could this possibly help her with this mechanism you're saying? I said, well, I think it's worth trying. Well, in about 6, 8 weeks, he comes to me and says, "Oh man, this is wonderful." She was had multiple drug resistance against the infectious agents, and now she's cleared up and is doing so much better. And I thought, well, that's just wonderful. I was the first, I would say, human response to adding this to the diet to boost the body's working through the genes to support host defenses. Well, in about a year, he comes back to me and he says, I didn't tell you that she was in a private school, that she had been in special education in school and not doing well. And they said that she's got hyperactive or attention deficit disorder, and she was not even doing well in the school. But all of a sudden now, she is doing so much better, and we're putting her back into the school, and she's in regular studies. And so I went to her and I says, "Honey, what in the world has happened?" And she says, "Well, Dad," she says, when you take the controller for the TV and start going through different channels, and Mother screams, "Get on one channel and stay there." She said,
Yeah.
in my head, it was like I've got all these channels, and they just keep changing, and I can't watch anything, or my mind can't be focused on something. But says now I can watch one channel and I can control my thoughts. And so
Wow.
she was off of the drugs. And as I frequently tell people, do you think these children with ADD, attention deficit disorder, or hyperactive syndrome with it, do you think they have a deficiency of Ritalin or Alderel in their brain? And they kind of look like, and I says, particularly, do you think so, that when we give them a dietary supplement that has fruits and vegetables and built around the aloe plant, and lo and behold, all their problems with working their neurons go away. And like this little girl, she says, now I can watch one channel.
Wow.
That's the first reason I wanted to tell you this is that that was the very first thing that gave us a hint that this substance from the aloe plant that we were the company called Carrington Laboratories was trying to develop just a drug for the AIDS syndrome, and they found out it was good for all kind of infections. But lo and behold, this little girl, not only was her infections of her ears and her bronchitis and her sinusitis and all of those things went away, but in time she got out of special education, got off of drugs, and started doing well in school. So that's kind of the story behind what we found out is that eventually any deviation from normal health. That if you have the proper nutrition, that the cells biochemically function. See, it's in the program of the DNA, or your 46 chromosomes, or it's 23 pairs. 23 come from the mother, 23 come from the father's family, which is a total of 46 in this double helix that you see in magazines.
Mm-hmm.
If you can sit back and lean back and say, gee, this double helix is like a biocomputer that takes control of the cellular synthesis in all the cells. And that's the way I look at it. And I also look at it in terms of that this is nutrition. And it's like an expansion of the vitamin discovery era, which I don't think is over. That we have added to this ingredient from the aloe, which it took a special biochemist to that had his doctorate in how to separate carbohydrates. His name was Alexis Eberindou, that got his PhD, and his thesis was just on separation of carbohydrate chains, which are made of different sugars. There are about 200 sugars in nature, and the aloe plant takes about 10 of those 200 and puts them in chains. And one of these chains is about 50% of the sugar that's in the aloe leaf gel is mannose. And we eventually found out it had to be acetylated mannose to have any bioactivity. But this little girl was the first hint that something besides host defense and infections, that you could get benefit. And this continues to go. Fact is, I've got 39 years that I've been kind of focused on this since 1985, when that fella came to me, and I was going to finally, I told him no, he needed to go to a medical school to find an infectious disease specialist. And about 2 years later, I found out he had tried that, and they wouldn't give him the time of day because it wasn't a drug. It had been thrown out of the FDA, that it was actually nutrition. It's utilized by the cells to make this site on the side of the membrane of all the cells in the body for cell-to-cell communication. And the father of human physiology was named Dr. Hans Selye, and he called this balance, that this domain on the membrane of all the cells works to make everything in the cell get optimal levels. In other words, the amount of fluid in the cell, or water, electrolytes, hormones, it doesn't matter what it is, it tries to get it in the normal zone, because that's what the program in the DNA is, to move the biochemistry of the cells to the normal zone. Well, when this Hans Selye called this homeostasis, or balance and harmony in the cells, and that's what this active compound from the aloe vera plant supports, working through the genes. So let's go to the first slide with that background, and I hope that that story sticks with you, because we're going to get into some of the
it's definitely inspiring, because if you think about how much that changed her life and the trajectory of, generationally probably, to be able to find that homeostasis in her cells, to have her not only clear up her health nutrition, or her health situation, but then her, her situation with school and her ability to learn and all of that. That's just significant. So
I continue to be amazed at the benefits and the power of more comprehensive nutrition, supporting the engineering design of life that is coded in DNA. And I've been talking about this for a long time, but what I show on this first slide, you see my email there, rmcdaniel@wellnessquest.org. I have a 43-page published manuscript that is independent validation that's been published and it's paid for by the government of China. I sit back and kind of laugh because it looks like I've been told that also in Iran that they've done some research on this active ingredient on the aloe, just like they did in the government of China, paid for it. And this 43-page paper is just incredible with independent validation of what I've been trying to tell people because, I was indoctrinated in pre-med and medical school and in 2 residency programs with what I call the paradigm for modern medicine, which is basically if you've got a health problem that's physical, mental, or emotional, we have a drug for it.
Right.
And they say basically you can ignore the cost, which is exploitive when they're in patent, and you're supposed to ignore the toxicities and side effects because the mechanism of action of drugs is to interfere with the engineering and design of life, to substitute, to block, to stimulate, or to depress normal biochemistry to reduce the symptoms. And in fact, the ideal drug is if you quit taking it, the symptoms come back. Pretty good business point. However, what I take exception to is that if it's in patent, that the costs are exploitive, and I'm opposed to that.
Yeah.
But if you got my email there, if you would like a copy of this 43-page validation, of independent validation of our work that China has done, and the bibliography, well, first I ought to tell you that the second page of this journal, this article, pays tribute to the research that we did at Carrington Laboratories back in 1980s and 1990s, and they cite our key papers, and then they go on and do their research. But in the bibliography, they have over 100 different published papers that have been done in multiple laboratories on the aloe ace mannin that further proves the benefits that I've been telling people, because one of the reasons I do these lectures is that I hope that people will eventually recognize the fact that in the plant kingdom, we have the molecules that the DNA in the animal kingdom, which is human beings are a part of it, need in the biochemistry to make bioactive molecules that are structure function for normal good health. And you need a good broad diet, and we put in the supplement that I have developed over these years called New Eden, not only the active ingredient from the aloe plant, which is much like a vitamin, or if you want to say vitamin, it's like a super vitamin because everything you combine it with works better. Mm-hmm. And this is independent validation of it. And I'd be happy to send you, if you send me an email, I'll send back to you to your email a copy of this paper. So let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Now, in research that was the multiple academic institutions that Carrington Laboratory was funding, they were able to find that 9 molecules organized in 3 chains of the aloe ace mannin, the active sugar in the aloe gel, are assembled in the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the second major step in cellular synthesis, and it's a site for cell-to-cell instructions that's on the membrane designed on every cell in the body, and it's for balance and harmony. And as I said before, this balance and harmony of the cells that Dr. Han Say called homeostasis. Next slide, please. Now, I told you the little story about the little 12-year-old girl that
Hmm.
had the attention deficit syndrome. And actually, this psychiatrist, Catherine Dyckman, and a dentist, Ray McKinney, published this paper on the effect, and they call it, at this point, we didn't know that the molecule in the AIDS patients was acetylated mannose, but we just knew it was sugar, and we knew it was nutritional because glyco is Greek for sweet
Right.
sugars, so we called it glyconutritional. And the first paper was finally published by this psychiatrist and dentist, and it's published in the Proceedings of the Fisher Institute, which for about a year, pardon me, we produced this announcement journal, and I kind of proud of the fact that I had to hear from different people in different sites that it was working for attention deficit disorder in multiple children, that their parents and the children didn't know each other. So it was
Right.
benefits in multiple areas and multiple sites. And I was taught in my medical training that these anecdotal observations are worthless. They mean nothing. But I have found out if you're getting the same type of responses in different areas, different states, different cities, with children that don't even, and their parents don't even know each other,
Hmm.
that this is an indication to do a more formal study. And this is the first one that was done by a psychiatrist in Arkansas. And I think McKinney, the dentist, was, I think, in Michigan. I'm not sure. Next slide, please. Now, in that paper, they had 19 children, and twice a day for 6 to 8 weeks, they gave the active ingredient from the aloe plant called Ace-Mannin supplement. And for those children that weighed 50 pounds or less, they got one capsule a day of this. For those that were 51 to 75 pounds, they got 2 pounds, 2 capsules. For those that were over 75 pounds, they got 3 capsules. And all of them took a phytonutrient capsule, which was fruits and vegetable powders. And this is very significant because it took me a long time to realize it. But in 1940s, when I was a kid, nearly all your grocery stores were owned by a local family. And each year there were certain fruits and vegetables you could only have about 4 to 6 weeks during the growing season because they didn't offer anything for sale that was more than about 50 miles from their store. Well, what has happened since 1940? We have national chains of stores that have food, all types of food and other things too. And lo and behold, you can have watermelon and muskmelons and cantaloupes and all your berries, strawberries,
Yep.
blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, 12 months of the year. How do they do this? Well, the agribusiness follows the growth zones or the seasons across the continent. And lo and behold, to have a shipping life and a shelf life, they pick it when green. Well, what's the significance of this? When you pick a fruit or vegetable green, the principal molecule in it is chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is an incredible molecule that captures energy from the sun that the plant uses as energy for its metabolism, but it only put the nutrients in the fruits or vegetables when it begins to ripen on the vine or on the plant. And they can't take these plant ripened things. If they tried to ship it to a store, it would be rotten by the time it
Right.
gets there. But what has happened in the thing is now you can take that plant ripened fruit or vegetable that couldn't be shipped and you can rush to the freeze dryer and reduce it to a powder that becomes an ingredient for a dietary supplement that has the actual molecules that your genes call for in cellular synthesis to make bioactive compounds to run the biochemistry and physiology of life. And so often when people take our dietary supplement, New England, they say, it's a miracle, it's a miracle. And I point out, it ain't no miracle. All it is it's vine ripened nutrients that by rushing it to the freeze dryer, you can take it to a powder and you can put it in the dietary supplement, and you're providing what your genes require in cellular synthesis to make the biochemistry compounds that run our body's physiology and biochemistry.
Now, the aloe is not freeze dried, though. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is as well. Okay. Because
Yes,
I knew there was a special way that you had to process the aloe to retain the nutrition. And that's where this product is different from a lot of the other aloe vera products.
Well, that's another subject, but
Sorry, I'll take you off on a tangent.
working with a biochemist that realized all these problems that I'm telling you about, he developed a process that not only do you get the acetylated mannose that is made in the leaf of the aloe plant, but his process, if you look at a book about aloe, you'll find out that there are about 200 metabolic products that the plant makes to run the physiology of the plant.
Okay.
Well, that's included in his with his Ace Manning, with his procedure that he's developed to make this powder that has more than just the acetylated mannose, but it's got all these other molecules, and there are similarities in the cascades of biochemistry in the plant kingdom and in the human biochemistry cascades to run the metabolism. And so you get a lot more than just the Ace Manning with the New Eden product that I've got. Well, these 19 subjects that got to this, I gave you what they did,
Yes.
the amount they gave them on their weight. And then they used assessments that have 22 items about attention and 24 on impulsiveness. And then McCartney has 32 health claims, because they found out not only did these kids ADD, ADHD improve, but their health, their general health improved, because that's the programming that's in the DNA. If you have the proper nutrition supplied, you make bioactive molecules to move things to the normal zone. So let's go to the next slide, please. Well, this is just taking the information in this article and putting it in graphs. And you can see in the first graph, the parent rating on inattention. And then the second graph is a parent rating on hyperactivity and impulsivity. And you can see how bad it was before the nutrition, and that it improves because the score goes down. They have less problems with inattention, less problems of hyperactivity and impulsivity. And lo and behold, that third thing is the health problems that are unrelated to ADD and ADHD, of how they improved. And so that's the graphic that, and this was, I think, in about 90 days.
Wow.
Because if you go out and continue this continues to improve. Next slide, please. Now, it's a long story that I won't get into. We don't have hours. But up in Chicago, in Cabrini Green, which was the biggest public housing project that the HEW put together in Chicago, and they eventually had to dynamite it and destroy it because it became such a den of drug dealing and prostitution and all that. But the inhabitants were on welfare, and they had children, and they didn't have good diets. And so they put together the Israel Academy at one of the churches for children that fell through all the cracks of the Chicago or Illinois school system, special education and such, that these kids were on Alderell and Redland and were destined. Fact is, educators said these kids have no hope, that by the time they're 20, they're either dead or they're in prison or they're just, in bad shape because they don't have any examples of productivity. And so the head of the dietary and the principal, which were the two authors there, and they did this study we put together a gelatin bear that had the fruits and vegetables and the aloe in these little children's bears, we called them. And it's a long story that they turned out brown, and nobody wanted them instead of being colorful like they were supposed to be. And so we used them in this study for the Chicago Results Project. Next slide.
Okay. I think we did do a video on that. If you guys are looking for that story, go look on my channel. If you click on the playlist that says wellness, you will find all of Dr. Reg's videos.
The next slide just shows you that there were 41 students in this little school of a total of 58 students that were getting grades. Those preschool children weren't getting grades, but those that were far enough along, and they got them in these different groups. And you'll see a column to the left and then a column to the right, pre and post these children in the groups of group A, B, C, D, and E, and how many students were in it, and what their pre-study evaluations were in the post, and the numbers are increased because there's benefit, and their grade point average pre and post. These children, I hate to get into it, but there was an article in Scientific American about the conflicts about what to do with these children that are underperforming. And these children just on improved nutrition did better than these studies that were published in Scientific American, where they spent millions of dollars reducing class size, more time on task, and giving the teachers some new techniques to use with them. Well, just by giving improved nutrition, you'll see how the numbers improve.
Wow.
The grade point average. And we also had some subjective evaluation by the parents and the teachers. But one of the things that there at Cabrini Green, as is typical in schools, they had parents' night, and their history was no parent ever showed up for parents' night. However, after a semester of having improved nutrition, they had parents' night, and every child had a parent show up. And they were full of questions. What in the world are you doing up here at this school? My daughter or my son comes home, they get out their books, they do their lessons, they don't fight with the older or other children in my family or the next door neighbor children. We ask them to do something and they do it. We ask them to quit doing something and they quit doing it. This isn't my child. What in the world are you doing up here? Well, all we were doing was improving the nutrition to support the engineering and design of life that is written in the DNA of their chromosomes, and their brains work better. And just to tell you, we just continued finding out after this little girl that Charlie's daughter, the 12-year-old, is it expanded to more and more. Well, let's go to the next slide.
Okay.
Each child was given this a brown bear instead of a color brand, and they were given one on arrival at noon at the end of the day, and they didn't have them on the weekend, so they went 3 days without it on the weekend. And the brown bear had 14 fruits and vegetable powders and the aloe ace mannin. And if they were on medications, they were continued.
Right.
However, many of them were able to come off of them, and we were doing these quantitative assessments, and we had an out-of-state monitor to come and visit twice. He was a retired Air Force, not Air Force, but private pilot that could go on the airplanes for just almost no cost. And he interviewed the teachers. And one of the most important things in the interviews is that all the teachers in this little school were looking for another job when they started. Why? They said they could see no benefit from their efforts with these children that were all on these different drugs and falling through the cracks of the public school system. And the noise in the school and the situation was just terrible. They were looking for another job. But the big change was on the second visit, they were seeing such incredible benefits in the children that all of a sudden they were getting fulfillment with their efforts to teach, and they were enjoying coming to the school and teaching because they could see benefits daily. They said that the noise in the school went down, that the conflicts with the teachers went down, the conflicts between the students went down, that the entire atmosphere was elevated. Next slide, please. Now, the teachers' learning environment improvements of this Chicago product is you can see the light thing, how bad the conflicts were, and they dropped from 78% to 34%, that the classroom noise that they rated at about 88% dropped to about 56%, and the classroom disruptions that destroyed the learning environment went from about 78% to 36%. This is actual measurement of what we're doing. And then you can see positive improvements, ability to grasp facts, class preparedness of their lessons, teacher cooperation with the student, and across all these things improved. As you see, the dark graph increased over the light things, and of course the grade point average for the entire 41 children that that were getting grades increased. Next slide, please. The teacher's assessment that we provided, the pre-supplementation, post, see the improvement there from 298 to 363, and the teacher's evaluation of habits and attitudes were increased. Next slide, please. As I told you about the parents, all of a sudden it was 100% attendance. 12 students out of the 41 dropped all medications they were taking for ADD, ADHD wasn't needed. As I say, do you think they had a deficiency in their brain of these drugs? When you provide nutrients, it corrected the problem. And the disciplinary actions with the principal decreased 90% by the school log. Attendance of the school improved 45%. Property damage in the school was reduced by 50%. Minor illnesses were down 75%. Those are just general health improvements. The noise level rated by the faculty was a 95% improvement. And on the back of these evaluation forms that we provide them, they wrote little things that happen. And I will share with you one that brought me to tears. Is that the teacher said after recess that Joshua had these glasses on, and she said, "Joshua, you put those glasses back on Elmara's desk. What do you mean getting her glasses?" He started trying to say something to her and said, "Don't you back talk me. You just put those glasses on the desk." In a few minutes, Elmara comes in and she's got her glasses on just like the pair that's on the desk. She says, "Joshua, you've been in this school 2 years. You've never worn glasses. Whose glasses are those?" He says, "They're mine." "Well, why haven't you worn them before?" He says, "I can't read. Why should I wear glasses?"
Wow.
She says, "Why are you wearing glasses now?" He says, "I want to learn how to read."
Oh,
Oh my, that is one of the biggest problems in our society about the human problem. You can't do anything in school or in society or try to improve things until there is that internal thing is, I want to
yeah.
do something. And this is an example of what happened in this little outcast school that a little church was running in Chicago, in a terrible environmental situation where in their homes they had no books, their parents had no education, they were on welfare. And one of the things I want to share with you is a few months after this, we had for this company a regional event in Chicago, and those two authors of this paper came with four little girls to tell us thank you for the brown bears that they had all gotten.
Yeah.
This little pint-sized 12-year-old girl comes to the microphone, which I think she's destined to be Oprah Winfrey someday. And she gets on the microphone and she speaks very well. She says, "Yeah, where I live," says, "the only ones that have anything are prostitutes and drug sellers." But says, since we had this improved nutrition, says, "I'm going to get my GDE and I'm going to go and get my journalism degree. And I want to go into journalism." And says, "My brother says he wants to go into mechanics, and my cousin wants to go into electronics training."
Wow.
Of course, everybody clapped and and all. And on my laptop, I have a icon that one of the people up there in Chicago, and that little girl has finished and gotten her degree, and she has gone into video journalism.
That's
And
awesome.
I've been trying to find out about some of the boys. Were they able to go to learn how to do some different task,
Yeah.
which you may or may not be aware of, but some of the legislators are saying we've got too many people that are wanting to go to college, and they go to college and there's not a job for them, but we need people that know how to do air conditioning,
Right.
heating, roofing, plumbing. We need to have more young people going into crafts that they're quite well paid. It's just there's society doesn't seem to respect them like a college graduate. But what good is a graduate degree if nobody
Everybody has one. Yep.
knows
Yeah.
what to do?
I think the tide is turning on that. I think people are starting to understand the value of skilled labor um, and how much that's needed. So I think that's
Well,
wonderful.
on the slide there, I hope that you remember the little story of the 12-year-old girl that says, now I can watch one channel
Yeah.
instead of it just going constantly differently. And this came from more comprehensive nutrition. And that was just one of the early uh, activities that, see, we didn't actually, all we had as a goal was to try to find a new drug for AIDS. Well, we found something that was good for not only bacterial infections, but viral infections, fungus infections, even tuberculosis, drug resistant tuberculosis, by the body's defense mechanisms being supported. And we even had emails from Africa where I was shocked to find out that the number one cause of death of children on planet Earth is chronic malaria,
Right.
a organism in their blood that gets in their red cells. And these children are bedfast, they quit growing, they can't go to school, and they have episodic fevers and chills and red cell destruction. Well, we got these emails that by just homeopathic amounts of improved nutrition, that these children quit having fever, chills, red cell destruction, begin to grow, get strong, get out of bed, go back to school, and eventually found out they excelled in athletics, that they had endurance and neuromuscular coordination that was improvement over their peers. So this has been an incredible adventure that started out then the little girl I told you about that
Mhm.
the father came to me about her having serial infections, and in just a few weeks it helped that. But then about a year later, he came back and told me how she had gotten out of special schooling, was able to go back into regular class in public schools and reduce the cost of this. And it's just continued to expand because this supports the engineering and design of life that is coded in DNA, that is the code of life. And the DNA is to move the body, all the organisms, the organs to the normal zone. And in the homeostasis, the thing is, you don't have deviations from normal, which for communication purposes, human beings have developed profiles that we call them various diseases or syndromes. Well, these diseases or syndromes disappear when you give optimal nutrition. And as I said, many people shout, oh, it's a miracle. Well, the miracle was a long, long time ago. As I say, that this started out as a middle of the road scientific journey trying to develop a new drug, and it's turned into virtually what I would call a spiritual experience, because there is no question an organizing, designing, and creative power active in the universe that puts in the plants what we and our genes require in nutrition for normal health.
Wonderful. I happen to agree with you, and I appreciate all of these. And you guys, when you're talking about like, well, how long do I have to take this to see some results? Dr. McDaniel's telling you, like, the little girl had results in her ear infections and all that within a few weeks. This study that we just went over was held over 6 to 8 weeks, I believe. Um, and that's what all of that data was about. So when you're looking at this, and you should continue, of course, so that you continue having the good nutrition in your body and that your cells can stay in that homeostasis. Um, but you definitely can see some results pretty quickly. So
But
um,
as you notice on the screen, that there are two ways to get a 20% discount
Yeah.
for the formulation that's built around the active ingredient from the aloe plant. For example, we have the active ingredient, the amino acid from cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous vegetables, we don't eat many of them in this country because we don't like turnips, radishes, broccoli, cauliflower, kale. And that's where this critical amino acid cysteine is present. Well, we have it combined with one of the other ingredients, with the active ingredient from the aloe, to put back in not only those nutrients that it requires a vine ripened powder to supply what your DNA requires, but we're bad about not having a broad diet and not eating some things that are needed in cellular synthesis. And so we put them in the New Eden. And if you get an automatic order, you get a 20% discount. Mm-hmm. And you also get, there's worldwide research on the contributions that the bacterial flora in the gut contribute to improved health. And so we have these friendly bacteria. We give a free box of this with your 300-gram canister of New Eden to also contribute to improve nutrition for your cells in all systems of your body.
Absolutely. So you guys can use, there's a link in the description, or when you're ordering, they will ask you where you heard about it, and you can tell them, like Quinn Lisa or Lisa Mighty Davis. And you can also find on the website ways to send a message to Dr. Reg, tell him about any deviations from normal that you might be experiencing, and he may have studies or research material that he can share with you. You can also find books that Dr. Reg has written on the website, and so you might want to look into some of those as well. Well, thank you, Dr. Reg. I appreciate it so much. And the little surprise that I wanted to share with everybody is that I was on a Spaces call over the weekend, and I shared the story that Dr. Reg had been involved with some of the testing. From a lot of people know the Dow Ellis Buyers Club story from, Hollywood doing that story, and they didn't know how that all played out, and the role that aloe vera played in it, and all of that. And so I really wanted to dig in and tell that story. So I'm going to be submitting some questions to Dr. Reg, and we're going to do an interview with him next week about that. So if you all have any questions, I'd love for you to email me or message me, hit me up on Twitter with any questions that you might have for Dr. Reg about that. And I'm going to be picking his brain and telling that story because I think it's something that we all want to know about. There are some similarities, and I don't know if you guys know this, but Dr. Fauci was in charge of all of the AIDS research back then, and you know what we're going through now. So I don't think they're from the government and they're here to help. Just saying.
I often think of Ronald Reagan saying the government doesn't have the answer to anything, that the problem is the government.
You heard it here. You heard it here. All right. Well, thanks again, Dr. Reg. You're always just a blessing to us, and I appreciate it. And I will talk to you very, very soon. And you guys, will see you next time here on The New Normal. Happy 4th of July tomorrow to everyone. Take care.